Welcome back to UC University Apologetics Class 5, The Resurrection. This is part 2. If you missed part 1, you can go back and see it on our YouTube playlist for Union Church University. The next thing we see is Jesus is the point of the history of Israel. God started making his argument about who Jesus was at the beginning of time. God was working throughout the history of the Israelites to point them towards a Messiah. Their history was his story. God took elaborate links in the Israelite history to create an ultimate analogy, a word picture on the grandest scale, an analogy in history, through the lives of Israelites and their history. Someone is coming. This is why, and this is what it will look like. Let's look at a few examples of how God worked in the people of Israel. First, the fall. A supernatural deliverer will come. After the fall in Genesis 3:15, God tells Adam and Eve to look for a deliverer, a promised seed who would come and crush the head of the serpent. Next, Abraham and Isaac. God will provide the substitute. In the story of Abraham and Isaac in Genesis 22:11 through 14, when Abraham is about to offer up Isaac as a sacrifice, we see more of how God will deliver his people. We see that no higher test of loyalty than to give up one's only son for another. God will preserve the seed of the promise. Substitution offering is necessary. God provides for the people's need. Our greatest need is forgiveness. The next thing we see is Egyptian captivity and Passover. God demands a sacrifice, which can only be provided by the death of a perfect lamb. In delivering the Israelites from their Egyptian captivity in Exodus 12 through 15, we see that God demands a sacrifice. The firstborn son represents the family, taking on himself the fate of the family. Apart from sacrifice, everyone, even the chosen people, deserve death. Only substitutionary blood can avert death, and the blood must be displayed publicly. Next, the scapegoat. In Leviticus 16, God declares that one day a year will be the Day of Atonement. On that day, the people are reminded that the sins of the people must be forgiven annually because the people are always sinful. Only a perfect sacrifice is acceptable. Once a sacrifice has been accepted, God sends out from the people sin transferred and remembered no more. These and many other narratives from their history were to teach the Israelites the nature of man's plight. Sacrifices is needed to deal with man's sin. Suffering must be involved. A combination of divinity and humanity required for salvation, divine and self-giving, and so on. God was using events to point to and to prepare the Israelites for a Messiah who would rise to deliver them. Next thing we see is Jesus is spoken about by the prophets of Israel. This is God's version of show and tell. He showed the people his plans through their history, but he also told them what he was doing through his prophets. God sent prophets to explain and predict the who, what, where, how, and why of Jesus. The Bible contains over 300 prophecies that testify to and were fulfilled in Jesus Christ. Let's go through a few examples. First, who? For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, Isaiah 9:6. Next, what? Because you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you let your Holy One see decay. Psalm 16:10, fulfilled in Acts 2:31. Next, where? But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel. Micah 5:2, fulfilled in Matthew 2:1 and 2. Next, how? Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will be with child and will give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel. Isaiah 7:14, fulfilled in Matthew 1:18. And perhaps the most instrumental prophecy is found in Isaiah 53. The chapter captures so perfectly the message of Christianity. Jesus Christ is clearly the fulfillment of this amazing prophecy. Remember, this was written in 680 BC. This chapter is preserved on the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are dated before the time of Christ. It's the why. Surely he took up our infirmities and carried our sorrows. Yet we considered him stricken by God, smitten by him and afflicted. But he was pierced for our transgression. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. We all like sheep have gone astray. Each one of us has turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth. Isaiah 53:4-7. In these examples, we see that God used show and tell before Jesus lived to show his divinity and purpose for coming. Next, Jesus' claims to be divine are supported by his life, teaching, and miracles. Jesus' life was remarkable, and his claims were incredible. Let me ask you a question. What if God was one of us? What do you think he would look like? Well, Jesus was a wise teacher. Jesus is also universally respected as a great prophet and a great moral teacher by all the world's major religions. His teaching is moral truth, exhibited at its purest. It is not wishy-washy idealism, but it is realistic and cognate, the product of the sane mind. Even the opponents of Christianity are quick to point out that they agree with Jesus' moral teaching. Some examples are the golden rule: do to others as you would have done to you. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Do not judge and you will not be judged. Forgive and you will be forgiven. Next thing we see is Jesus helped others. Miracles. The Bible records many of the miracles of Jesus, so many so that they're said it's not recorded. But we do have recorded 23 healings. Man with leprosy, a paralyzed man, a boy with a demon, crippled woman, official son, man born blind, etc. 9 times are recorded that Jesus displayed command over nature, the feeding of the 5,000, calming the storm, walking on the water. 3 times it's recorded of bringing back the dead to life, Jairus' daughter, the widow's son, and Lazarus. Next thing we see is Jesus' claims. There is a paradox about the life of Jesus, which I think you will capture if you read the Gospels carefully. For all his gentleness and meekness, he made some absolutely outrageous comments. Jesus' claims. He claimed to be above the law. He lived in a Jewish society where laws and rituals were strictly kept, but he just announced to everyone that he was above the laws. No one need to fast while I'm here, he said, one day. You have all your laws and your rituals, but I just do what my Father tells me to do. He claimed to be able to forgive sin in Luke chapter 5. There was a great crowd around Jesus, so some men cut a hole in the roof of the house and they lowered down a paralytic on a mat. Friend, your sins are forgiven, Jesus claimed, that no one could know God except through him. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, he said in John 14:6. He claimed that he would rise from the dead. The Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of men. They will kill him, and on the 3rd day he will be raised. He claimed to be God. Before Abraham was born, I am. I am was the holy name of God in Hebrew, unutterable by any man. And Jesus said this, the people tried to stone him because he clearly came to be God. Jesus said to him, you have said so, but I tell you from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Ultimately, Jesus' life is so remarkable and his claims so clear that it led to C.S. Lewis to come to his famous trilemma conclusion, that Jesus is either Lord, liar, or lunatic. He says, I'm trying to prevent anyone from saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him. I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I do not accept his claim to be God. That is one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on level with the man who says he's a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make the choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman, or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come up with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to. Well, we'll go ahead and pause right here and pick up next week when we join together again. Thanks for joining us for UC University Apologetics. Stay safe. See you later. See you soon.